Hello and welcome to the Game 3 podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today is our conclusion ranking the top 25 defenders in the NBA. We are going to rank the top 8 defenders in the NBA. A whole lot of bigs, some versatile bigs, some one versatile wing that we'll get to that we're excited to talk about, but a whole lot of bigs to talk about in ranking slotting the absolute best defenders in the NBA. We're really excited to share this with you. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Oh! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game 3 podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? We are at the conclusion of this very fun project, this very difficult project. And while I was excited to see, like, okay, who would Sam have in his top 25? Where would he have this guy? Where would he have that guy? We've had some differences for sure. I'm really fascinated for this because I mean, my guess is we have the same name at the top, and I think we probably had the same top 8 names. I'm just interested to see the order that we had them in because there's probably similar tiers. I think there's definitely arguments for like who I had 6 and 7 to be maybe even as high as 2, right? Like, I think some people may disagree with who I have 2, and I don't know if that's who we will have 2. I don't know the final ranking, but all elite level defenders, and I'm really excited to talk about them and really excited to see where you landed.
So, as I mentioned when we did this initially, there was a tier break for each of the episodes, right?
Yep.
So there was a tier break at number 17, between 17 and 16, which is why we split there. And then there was a tier break between number 9, Alex Caruso, and the guy we're going to have at number 8. And it felt right to me.
Yeah.
The more I looked at it, like I felt pretty good about the fact that the top 8 guys were the top 8 guys. Like that felt right to me, honestly.
I will say real quick, number 8 was very strongly 8, but I would say if I was going to, if my number 8 is who our number 8 is, again, I don't know. I get surprised.
Because you were a little bit more hesitant on this player than I was. I did make your number 8 the number 8.
Okay. I actually have like the next group of guys, maybe a little bit in it, but yes, I think he deserves to be in this episode, even though the next 4 names after that for me, or 7, I guess overall, maybe would be a little bit higher. He definitely deserves to be in this episode, not in the previous one.
Yeah, no, I think I agree wholeheartedly with that, which is why I had him a little bit higher than you even. All 3 of the next players that we have on our list actually tied.
Oh, okay.
In terms of where we had them ranked. We had, I had the guy that we ranked 8th at 6th. We both had the same player at number 7.
Okay.
And then, something like that. And then I think that like I had the next guy at 8 and you had him at 6 or something like that. Right. Something in that ballpark. I might have screwed up. You might not have had this player at 8. It might be the other guy that you have at 8. I can't remember what I did here.
We'll see.
We'll see. I have literally the rankings up and I'm like looking at it and I'm like, okay, how did I fuck this up? We'll find out. Okay. So I know the order that I have it on my screen is right. Yeah. That's the important part. But all 3 of these guys essentially tied for 6th on our list. So I think that that's probably right. Honestly, like these 3 guys being 6, 7, 8 in some order. Before we get to 6, 7, 8, I want to rehash how we did this first and foremost, and then we'll go through the order as we've listed them already. So Bryce and I had Bryce rank the top 30 defenders on his board, on his list, basically. I then did the same and averaged the 2 rankings together. I realized I forgot to say that the first time that we did this exercise. Probably a good idea to say that up front here. I think we said it in the middle of like the Giannis portion and the first video that we did. Second, we have ranked 17 players already. So let's talk about the order of those 17 players, right? So Number 25, Walker Kessler. Number 24, Andrew Nembhard. Number 23, Isaiah Hartenstein. Number 22, Giannis. Number 21, Chris Dunn. Number 20, Jalen Suggs. Number 19, Ivica Zubac. Number 18, Jalen Williams. Number 17, Jaden McDaniels. Number 16, Asar Thompson. Number 15, Lou Dort. Number 14, Tamani Kamara. Number 13, OG Anunoby. Number 12, Herb Jones. Number 11, Dyson Daniels. Number 10, Rudy Gobert. Number 9, Alex Caruso. I feel good about that. I would guess that the most pushback that we're going to get ahead of time here, or the most pushback we've gotten, because again, we're recording these ahead of time because I'm going out on vacation. I'm currently in Thailand somewhere, is my guess. We're going a couple places, but I would guess we're getting a little bit of pushback on Rudy being at 10, as opposed to being, higher, given his long track record of defensive dominance. And I would guess we're getting pushback on Lou Dort being number 15. If you made me predict where the pushback will come from, maybe Zubac's at 19. I can see that, but we'll see.
That's what I was going to say. This is what is interesting is with each episode, I'm like, man, I wonder where people are really disagreeing, and you're not getting real-time feedback. Like even whenever we do live, well, I don't look at the comments because I'm not thick-skinned enough to do it. You still pull them up. So I see where people are really pushing back or really agreeing or whatever. Or people add us on Twitter and all of that. And so it has been a little bit different where, we're not getting, we didn't drop 25 through 17 and then get the feedback from that. And then the next one. And so I am fascinated to see, is it going to be the names you mentioned? Or like, I wonder if J-Dub is another one, or like, I wonder if non-Pistons people are really going to push back Asar being as high as what he is.
Yeah, maybe.
And then when we get to the top here, I'm fascinated with this as well, because again, like we said, every episode, these defenders are so good, and you really can have real conversations. That's what I hope we have. Whenever people push back, I hope it's real conversations. Because as we've talked about, Sam, depending on what you value, right? Do you value disruption? Do you value positioning? Do you value versatility? Do you value the big, the wing, all of those different things? What scheme does it fit is really going to determine how you rank, right? These players. And so I just hope whenever people do want to push back, we're here for it, but push back with that context. Hey, I would have had Rudy Gobert at number 3 because I think the drop coverage rim protection is just more valuable than a bunch of the guys we're going to talk about today.
Okay. Do you want to get into it?
Let's do it.
Number 8, recently traded to the Dallas Mavericks, Anthony Davis is here at number 8. Realizing that the little bar there matches my Ohio State.
Perfect.
Sweater,
nice. Well done.
A little
Sam.
bit. Trying to decide if that's a good thing or not. Good friend of the program, Mark Titus, bitches at me all the time as being like an under the radar Ohio State grad. So, decided to rock the Ohio State stuff in honor of today was Julian Sayin just got named quarterback at Ohio State. So we're excited here. We're excited for the team. We're excited for Texas to get rolling here. Get into some college football.
College football season.
Number 8. Anthony Davis. So I ended up a little bit higher on Davis than you did. You had some questions on AD. So I kind of decided to slot him at number 8. This is really the only exception to the rule that we had, where whenever we had a tie, I tended to give the benefit of the doubt to the more experienced player kind of. But both of the guys that are tied with him, have been playing for at least 8 years now. I believe maybe 7 in one case, but these are guys that are well established. So I felt okay kind of breaking that rule a little bit, given your hesitancy. But let's talk about what Anthony Davis does that's so special. First and foremost, he is not as fast and as explosive as he once was when he was, 21, 22 and just wrecking worlds for the New Orleans Pelicans, where I think he was very clearly the best defender in the league at one point there. And if memory serves, he did win a defensive player of the year, or no, he didn't win a defensive player of the year. I think that he lost it to, did he lose it to Draymond? I think off the top of my head in that first year in LA, and then had a couple of other top 3, top 4 finishes. But
Giannis,
I thought
Giannis won it that year. It looks like.
Okay. I thought there was a stretch there where he was the best defender in the NBA. I think he is still a genuinely like impactful, kind of scheme breaking defender in a lot of ways. His positioning continues to just be incredible with the way that he uses that 7'5" wingspan at 6'10", 6'11", whatever we want to call AD. He uses his length really well. And despite not being necessarily as explosive laterally as what he was, I think his footwork is just sublime. Like his fluidity and the way that he covers ground is just so sharp. Like you can play him in drop. You can play him in like a catch drop if you want to, or like play him at the level essentially. I think he's pretty okay if he gets caught on an island in a switch. Maybe not as good as he was when he was 25, but certainly still more than passable at 32, if not just outright good at 32. The positioning though is the key for me. I think that he is just so good at using his length and his footwork and being able to cover all of the gaps that you like, on top of still blocking over 2 shots a game. You know what I mean? Like he is still an absolute playmaker on that end. He has averaged over 1 steal per game every single season of his career. He's been over 2 blocks every single season of his career, but 1 since his rookie season. I love watching just Anthony Davis transform almost from the guy who had the best defensive tools in the NBA there for a pretty good run in what I would argue like the mid 2010s there to maybe late 2010s even, to being like the smart cerebral, I still know how to use my length and I still move well enough, versatile rim protector big that we've seen him become in LA. And now Dallas is hoping that he will continue to be for the next, 3 or 4 years in Dallas.
Yeah. So over the last 2 years, it's only been him and Wembanyama that have done the at least 1 steal per game and at least 2 blocks per game. So like that just kind of tells you the rare, you go back to a year before that, it was only him and Jaren Jackson Jr. A year before that, it was only him. So like, it's just this rare combination of rim protection, but also the disruption, which to me, when you look at those steal numbers, it's like hand activity and understanding those type of things as well. And I think that's what he does combine. We're going to use the word versatility and impacting the game in multitude of ways with this list today. And he's one of those that whenever you look through things, awesome rotation blocks and, multiple times, but then he also combines that with some point of attack defense. I was hesitant more with him. I really was crushing him for the games played stuff way worse than what I needed to initially. And you're like, Bryce, you're being ridiculous here. And, I realized that, a player we're going to talk about in the top 5 would be my guess, would have the same type of argument even early in his career. Not very many of these guys have we had the games played stuff, but it was just like, no, this is ridiculous. Like he's still obviously one of the 10 best, and even for me, one of the 8 best defenders in the NBA. He needs to be in this final episode because the impact when he is playing is just ridiculous. And so you kind of outlined it there where he does a little bit of both. And then even though it's not the elite level athleticism for someone his size, he still understands positioning, footwork, scheme, all of those type of things.
I think he is really good at understanding scheme. I think that's a really important piece of it. The Lakers did a lot of things where they tried to feed guys to AD because he is so special as a rim protector and is so good at using that length to contest at the basket and be effective. The games played element is not unfair in my opinion. Since 2021, so the year of 2021, 36 games, 40 games, 56 games, and then 51 this past year. The only big difference there is the 76 games that he played in 2024. Yeah. And of course, he was top 5 in defensive player of the year, first team all defense. If he plays a full season, he's probably making first team all defense at this point. Yeah. Is kind of the reality. I do think that we should fairly dock him for games played, but I can't get him outside of the top 10 when docking for games played. Like, he is still unbelievable on the defensive end when he's out there, and really did a pretty amazing job, I thought, in 2024, particularly, of holding up a Lakers defense that had a lot of issues. Taurean Prince played 27 minutes a game and played over 2,100 minutes. D'Angelo Russell played 2,500 minutes for that team. Rui Hachimura is like big and strong and has some length, but is not very good on the help side, is not, all that great at like reading and reacting to things defensively quickly. The fact that that team, with those like three guys playing at least 1,800 minutes, plus Austin Reeves is like smart defensively, but like there's only a certain level he can get to, right? You really had three under the bar defenders, and then Reeves, who is probably about average, just, based on intelligence and like rotating well and everything. Has his struggles on the ball. If people want to complain about that and say he's below average, like, I'll hear it out. I don't really agree, but whatever.
Who's like, the point of attack defender there, Sam? Like,
there isn't
in general.
One.
Yeah. Like, to your point here, like Max Christie's a good defender, but he played less than 1,000 minutes. It's not nothing.
Cam Reddish was good that year as well.
That's true. Yeah. But less than 1,000 minutes. Like, everybody that played close to 2,000, which I assume a lot of those minutes were with AD, aren't those dudes. Jared Vanderbilt only played 600 minutes that year in 29 games. And I had it in my notes from the Laker, obviously he played the one game with the Mavericks, or, 9 games, I guess. We saw the one really, but like, I think I had it here. They were 20th in defensive rating at this time in the season, whenever this note was from. And it wasn't his fault. Like, he had to be elite just to make up for everything else that was going on and lift them up to 20th in defensive rating.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Like, it was a real problem to me, watching them try to defend, and AD somehow found a way to, like, they were about league average according to Basketball Reference. Like, they were 16th in defense according to Basketball Reference that year. So it's just crazy to me that AD was still that good at 31 years old or whatever he was that season. I think he was 31 at that point. He is just a remarkable defender to me. Still allowed only 57% at the rim last season, which was a total mess. The year before was at 54% at the rim allowed, and contested like 7.5 shots per game at the basket, which was top 10 in the league last season. And a lot of the guys on that list are your typical like drop coverage bigs who end up contesting a lot of shots. They are a mix of your guys that get attacked sometimes with guys that are like genuinely great rotational rim protectors. I think that AD fits the genuinely great rotational rim protector category more than anything. And, in Dallas this year, it's going to be interesting. He's not going to be playing as much of the 5. He's going to be asked to play more of the 4. Do we see them shift him into more of like a Giannis-y?
Sure.
Let's just, kind of let it rock a little bit and let him be like the weak side havoc creator on defense, which is something I still think he is capable of with his read and reactability and intelligence. Maybe he can like continue to even get his arms into passing lanes for steals. But to me, the defensive brain, I think for AD, like, people think of him largely as like a tools based player because of the length. And I think his defensive intelligence really goes underrated a lot with how he thinks the game and how he read and reacts to things around him. And I think we should recognize that a little bit more. I think that AD is one of the smartest defenders in the NBA.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is going to be a theme as we talk through this with a lot of these guys, that there is a cerebral aspect to it. Some of them are freakishly either built physically or athletically in some capacity. I think even those guys, will talk about that. But I think there's going to be a lot of like, we really started to get into that last episode, Sam, where, and we talk about court mapping defensively, understanding schemes. We talk about scouting report defense, stuff like that. And I think that you don't get to this level just purely based on tools, right? Like I don't think that that's a thing. Now, the guy at the top, Maybe. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that to an extent, and we'll save that for then. But someone like AD isn't so physically gifted from NBA standards that there's not a mental component that goes with his greatness on the defensive end. And for the games played argument, like you said, he's made all NBA defense, 5 times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, if I'm not miscounting here. I mean, he has a real history here of making these teams and being in the running for DPOY. Throughout his career, like you said, when he's played games, he's been in the mix.
Yeah. And realistically, this is a guy that's just missed a lot of games throughout his career, right? That's the reality. I don't know if that's going to get better necessarily, but if he'd played full seasons from 2019 until 2023, we'd probably be talking about 4 more, defensive, all defense teams, right? Because he got the one in 2020 when the Lakers won the title, but we didn't get another one there in that time window just because of missed games. So AD is an unbelievable defender, and we did have to dock him a little bit for the missed games, but we couldn't dock him to where he's outside of this, top echelon of players.
Correct.
Okay. Number 7 and number 6 really were interchangeable for me in a big way. Like I said, we tied here with number 7 and number 7, number 6, and number 8. Holy shit, I just said that in the worst order possible. That was so chaotic.
I get pissed when people count it the wrong direction. You just went all over the freaking place. Good night.
That was so chaotic. 6, 7, and 8 were all tied, but I think 7 and 6 particularly kind of pair together in my head. Bam Adebayo is number 7. Bam Adebayo is just straight up the most switchable to big in the NBA. He has no problem dealing with 1s. He has no problem dealing with 5s, and it allows Miami to get extremely versatile with how they use him. He is unbelievable at being able to go out and blitz ball handlers and then go and recover. I would argue he is frankly one of 3 or 4 bigs in the NBA I would feel remotely comfortable blitzing with as a big. It is crazy how good he is at that. Number 2 on that list, I don't even know who I would argue, frankly. He's so far ahead of everybody else there. You can play him at the level. You don't really want to play him in drop. I think that's where he does get docked a little bit. You do need to play somewhat more aggressive. He's not horrendous in drop. He's gotten better at it throughout the course of his career. I thought early on he was not very good at it. Now he's playing, I would guess, more consistently at the 4 with Khalil Ware there. I would guess that's going to be their kind of, goal as an organization, is to play him at the 4 a little bit more consistently, given, how much investment they have in Ware at this point. We'll see if it works. Theoretically, it could, just given the shooting ability that Ware has. But I love watching Bam play. He's great against matchups against bigs. He is great in matchups against big wings who theoretically can body him. They just can't. And he's switchable in all the right ways. You can play any style of defense with him, even drop, but he's gotten better at it enough to where you can play it. But that kind of scheme versatility, we've talked about that throughout these rankings that we've done. People talk about making your offense unpredictable so that defenders can't really react to it and know how to play it. It goes the same for defense. Being able to play so many different styles of defense, and that includes zone, which is something I didn't really bring up here. Miami flashes a ton of zone looks, and I think Bam being back there is really the key to being able to make it work. Being able to flash that many defensive looks creates so many difficult challenges for knowing what to call on offense at that point in order to attack Miami on the defensive end. So Bam, really is a game wrecker in a significant way to me.
Well, you think about a point guard, and I always go to ball screen coverages, but it could be a multitude of ways. But specifically with ball screens, you go into a game with some bigs and you just know, like, okay, they may be awesome at dropping, but I know they're going to be in drop. So whenever I use this ball screen, if I do it a certain way, the big's not going to be there. If I can use it, jail the defender, I can get in the mid range, whatever. Or maybe there's bigs the other way that, hey, I know they're going to have to hard hedge because they can't drop at all, or they can't play at the level and move with me. To your point with Bam, you can switch it up, right? You're playing whoever and they get their dribble pull up going. Okay, well, now we're going to get up and we're going to get more aggressive. Well, we're going to blitz you now, right? We're going to make you get out of your hands. Well, now they put in a big that can really pass. Well, we don't want them to hit the short roll, so maybe we play a little bit more at the level or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it just, or, hey, none of this is working. We're going to put in our bigger wings and guards, and we're just going to switch across the board. We're going to hold up in the post, and we're going to let Bam sit there and guard. Just that all around versatility does not come from a whole lot of these big guys. Like you said, the one thing is, if you wanted to just play true drop, like if you were just getting destroyed in everything else and you were playing someone like, hey, we want to drop and force him into the mid-range jumper, take away the lobs. But, maybe he's not as good at that, but he is so versatile. He, the impact comes in a bunch of ways. He does get the off-ball stuff, recovery blocks, all of that. I think he has really good hands to go along with the versatility and everything else we're talking about. And it was just, it showed up. It was scattered throughout my notes. Like, even on singular possessions, Karl Anthony Towns is a tough matchup for a lot of bigs. Bam is able to not only close out to him, but then move with him. And then in the same possession, now he switches out to OG and is able to stay with him. He has the strength to hold up against bigger guys like that as well. It's just an all around versatility on his defensive side. I'm glad you brought up the zone, because that's a huge aspect as well.
Yeah, no. And, I think that, Bam kind of got docked this year, unfortunately, for the offense not being very good.
I did it initially too, Sam. I was like, Bam wasn't as good this year. And then you talk yourself into realizing, no, Bam wasn't great offensively. The defense didn't necessarily take a step back. Yeah.
And look, I had him 11th in my, all defense rankings, right? So I just went with a couple other guys instead of him this year. So maybe I'm a part of the problem here, but I think Bam was still unbelievable this year on defense. We were talking about before this season, 5 straight years of him being an all defense guy.
Yeah.
And really the first year he made first team all defense was 2024, which is somewhat surprising to me, honestly, but he's been an elite defender for years upon years now.
It's funny. Real quick, just on that all defense stuff. He's been top 5 in DPOY. He was top 5 in DPOY for 4 straight years, but only made second team all defense all of those years. And then this year he was actually 10th in DPOY, but didn't make second team all defense. He was tied. Yeah. It's just kind of interesting, that he was that close to having multiple first team all defenses and doesn't.
Yeah. I pretty strongly considered him in the top 5. To be honest, I went with a few other guys at the end of the day, but I think that if we look up at the end of the year and Bam wins Defensive Player of the Year, that wouldn't blow my mind. I would really argue, I think, that these 7 players, because I assume AD, we just might not be at a place where he's going to be able to, stay healthy and get a full year, right?
Yeah.
I think that these 7 players that we're going to talk about at the top here are really if one of these guys is healthy, Defensive Player of the Year is probably coming from this group. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, and some people may throw in, I think Rudy's has probably passed. Dyson, I think, is the biggest name not in this list that people would push back on. But I'm like, what could if Dyson wasn't going to win it this year, what's he have to do, right? Whenever with the ridiculous deflection numbers, the ridiculous steal numbers, maybe if Atlanta's defense comes together all around and their team defensive rating is high enough to make the argument and they're top of the East, maybe. But in general, I think I agree with that statement.
Yeah. So, okay. Number 6, Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yep.
Jaren is, I think, often just kind of pigeonholed a little bit as like a rotational rim protector who is like this unbelievable shot blocker. And that is true. Like Jaren is an unbelievable shot blocker. That's not a false statement. I mean, when he won Defensive Player of the Year in 2023, he led the NBA in blocks per game. He averaged 3 blocks per game. But I would argue that over the last couple of years, he's actually kind of morphed into, he's not quite as like destructive as he was defensively back when he was 23 and just like took the league by storm. I think he might be like a more well-rounded defender now in terms of has every ability to switch on the perimeter. He's stronger, I think, on the block. I like the way that he kind of deals with gaps on the weak side now. Like I felt like previously he would really go for a lot when trying to block shots, but now I feel like he's not as like jumpy at the ball and he's able to just contest, seemingly more to me. I'll look up the numbers kind of while we're talking here, but I would guess he contests a little bit more at the basket now, even than he did then. I don't know, man. Like I thought he was an unbelievable defender this year.
Yeah. I mean, my thing with him as well is I know this isn't an offensive conversation, Sam. I get that, but it is impressive that he's been able to keep up this level of defense. Second team all defense this year, 7th in DPOY, while the offensive usage has gone up. And again, I brought this up with Giannis, where I feel like with Giannis, there's such an offensive load. It does make you wonder how much more impactful he could be defensively if he didn't have to take all of that on. Now, a lot of the guys we're going to talk about here, not a lot, but half of them or so have a pretty good offensive load. And so I think that is part of the conversation here, even at the top, because we're going to talk about a few guys, I guess, who their offensive usage isn't really what Jaren's has been, especially 2 years ago. Even this last year, he was at least still, third in the pecking order whenever, Memphis was healthy, which, still isn't a whole lot. So I think he's majorly impactful. You're talking about the rotation defense, all of that. Obviously, that's where he's really, really good. I think the pushback maybe from people could be the rebounding. That's something we've talked about with a few of these guys. And, Bam is good on the defensive boards. AD's a good rebounder. We'll talk about the improvement and growth of defensive rebounding from some of the guys above this. So that's always a conversation, as well as the fouls. I feel like, the foul stuff with, Jaren is always a topic of conversation as well. Although it has, if you just look on a per 100 possession basis, it has gotten better throughout his career.
Yeah. And Jaren's a really fascinating conversation in that regard with the fouling particularly, because I do think it takes him out of big moments from time to time in a way that is problematic. And it kind of goes to my point of kind of taking himself out of plays a little bit, which he would do somewhat consistently. And I think that, I don't know, I know that the rebounding numbers this year were basically what they always are, like somewhere between 4 to 5 defensive rebounds per game. It felt like a little bit better this year to me because a lot of those minutes to me came with Edey, and so Edey just kind of gobbles defensive rebounds. What I would say is that this year when Jaren Jackson was on the court, the Grizzlies had a 77 defensive rebounding rate, which is quite awesome. And when he was off the court, they had a 72 defensive rebounding rate. So even though he's not the guy gobbling rebounds, I actually thought he was quite solid on the glass this year in a way that, he didn't miss box outs going for big blocks. He didn't miss big moments because of that. I felt like he just did a good job staying solid and going to get the ones that he could, but then also being able to rebound and boxing his man out. And maybe Edey goes to get the ball, or maybe, one of the other bigs goes to get the ball. Right. So I don't know. I felt like it was just better, even if his individual numbers don't indicate it. The team numbers do indicate it though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important context in terms of, the amount of minutes he plays at the 4 and the type of bigs he's probably playing with normally. to the point where like, is it as much of a detriment as, we sometimes make it out to be? I think it's fair to bring up when we're talking about the elite of the elite though. Like, I don't know that as I was ranking this, that I kept him out of my top 5. Like, I'll be honest, Sam, I ranked my top 5 pretty fast and it never changed. I felt pretty good about it, even after talking with you, even after looking through my notes, after thinking about it and rethinking about it. So I don't think it was like, oh, maybe Jaren should be in the top 5, but the defensive rebounding isn't quite good enough. I don't think that keeps him out of the top 5. When we're talking about top 10 defenders in the league, I think it not being a strength is a fair thing to bring up, along with the fouls, because, you want those guys on the court in the biggest moments, right? Like, that's where you want to have these guys is late in the game, deep into the fourth quarter. Are they on the court to make the biggest plays in the biggest moments?
Well, this is a fun conversation here for the Grizzlies, like future, right? So when Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson were on the court together, what do you think the Grizzlies defensive rating was, Bryce?
On the court together. So let me see. So, 109.
109.6. Nailed it. When Edey was on the court without Jaren Jackson, what do you think their defensive rating was?
So Edey without Jaren, let's go 114.
Try 121.7.
That means they were. So what was they with Jaren without Zach? They had to have been really good still then.
Jaren without Zach, they were like 113,
which is what they were as a team. Okay.
Yep. So the level to which Jaren did an amazing job of like cleaning up for Edey and like making sure that, hey, like if somebody does take advantage of Zach in a ball screen, there's still a backline defender there. And a lot of teams are going to this model. Like we just talked about it with the Heat, right? They're going to it with Kel'el Ware, and they had success with it as well. Like I think that their defensive rating was right around like 110 with both of those players on the court, right? And then when Ware was on the court by himself, it was not very good. So rookies, somewhat limited bigs in terms of switchability, everything like that. But also, Jaren does an amazing job of cleaning up for his teammates. I think that more than anything, I like kind of listed him as like a versatile big here. I think he's like a cleanup, like mop up guy is like kind of the way to put him. He's like the league's ultimate mop up guy. Has always been the way I've thought of him. A guy that can go and like absolutely snatch a weak side block if somebody gets beat. A guy who is really, really good at rotating out to the 3-point line in a scramble situation if necessary, because he uses his length and athleticism at a really high level to get out there. I just love watching him play. He's so smart and just has like these great instincts on the defensive end, on top of being able to switch. Like that's the other thing. He is to me just like a slight level above Anthony Davis as a switch defender, not a massive level, but like a slight level above. I would also say he's like a little bit ahead of Chet for me as a switch big as well. I'll hear out that conversation, but I do think he does like a slightly better job of that than those guys.
Yeah, no, he's able to. That is what's interesting with him, and what I think two of the next four like are pretty versatile in terms of their matchups, like pretty switchable. Two of the other two, I think it's interesting. Well, I can say that Chet and Evan, I think, are interesting in terms of like, how would you rank those two with Jaren in terms of switchability? Because like, I think we both believe Amin and Draymond are like very switchable, versatile, take all of these matchups, all of that. I think what you feel about the switchability of Jaren versus Chet versus Evan Mobley probably does maybe end up making the decision on how you would personally have them ranked. If, you think Jaren should be above those two guys or, whatever, because it is a fun conversation amongst the three in regards to that specifically.
It's really what you're trying to build. And we'll talk about it when we get to these next two. But the reason I have those two ahead is because I think that they are more capable of playing both the 4 and the 5 on defense.
Sure.
Whereas I do think Jaren can struggle a bit more when asked to play the 5.
Yeah.
on defense. I think he is typically better with a big in there,
which is funny considering their body types, right? Like, totally. I mean, and we're going to talk about especially how Chet gets it done and both of them, but it is kind of funny that you would say that when Jaren has the more physical body type and like even more physical offensive game whenever you think about how they get it done. But I think in general, you're probably right. So,
yeah. I think that's where I'm at on it. But Jaren's an unbelievable defender. If you want to have him anywhere from 3 to 7, 3 to 8, I'll hear it out. Like, but we ended up with Jaren at 6. We ended up with all these 3 guys tied. And if you want to have Bam ahead of Jaren, I'll hear it out. If you want to have AD ahead of these guys, I'll hear it out. The reason that, the way that I ranked them was, I think I had AD 6, Bam 7, Jaren 8. I believe that you had AD 8, Bam 7, Jaren 6. Right. So
it's funny because, as you know, I switched my ranking, not a lot, but I actually ended up 6, 7, 8 also. AD 6, Bam 7, Jaren 8. So
okay, no, I misread it. So I had AD at 8 then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at it now, I misread. So we just flipped these 3 guys in our rankings.
I had AD a little higher. You had, Jaren a little lower. You had Jaren a little higher, AD a little lower, and Bam in the middle.
Yeah. And really, like, these 3 guys are just, what do you want to build defensively?
Yeah.
How do you want to build defensively?
So like if we were building mini tiers, like I said, I was pretty comfortable with my top 5. It would have been these next 3. And then it was the Rudy, Dyson Daniels, Alex Caruso, and then the plethora of wings that we talked about. Like if there was just like little tiers beyond the big, very, like you said, the tiers we use for the episodes. So.
And to me, the difference between these guys and then like the Caruso, I mean, you can definitely say this about Rudy Gobert. Like you can absolutely craft an elite defense around Rudy, hence why Minnesota was number 6. But Minnesota obviously has some other inherent advantages, like having other like truly great defenders on the perimeter with him. Whereas some of these guys, like I would argue Bam, like his second best defender this year was Haywood Highsmith, probably. Jaren Jackson, his second best defender this year was... Man, that's not an easy one to answer. It's probably Jalen Wells as a rookie, right? I think that's probably correct. Like, I think I would hear out a case for Edie on a per minute basis, but I think
Vince only played 27 games.
Yeah, didn't play a lot of games. Yeah. So like, I think that these 3 guys,
the Cam Spencer disrespect from Sam Vecenie is unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? These 3 guys, like you can make them a defensive centerpiece of like a top 5 defense, right?
Yep.
And I think that by and large, unless you just have truly catastrophic situational stuff around them, like AD had this year with the Lakers, you probably are at a certain level defensively with them in the mix, right? Like even last year with the Grizzlies, they still finished 12th in defense, even though every single player on their team got hurt outside of Jaren, it felt like, right? So I think that to me is the big difference between these guys. Like Alex Caruso, I don't know if you can build like a truly elite defense around him as like the number 1 guy who's like building your defense, right?
Yeah.
Dyson Daniels, like you're not making him to me the centerpiece of your defense. Like he's just a havoc inducing perimeter player who can really get steals and is absolutely miserable to deal with on that end. And that's a credit to him more than anything else. Right. But Atlanta was still 19th in defense, even with everything he did. Right. These top 8 guys, I think that you can craft like a genuinely elite defense as with them as the centerpiece.
Yep. I would agree.
Number 5. Chet Holmgren.
Yep. Is this because of me or is this both of us?
This is because of you. You had the next guy a little bit. We had them tied. Like we flipped 5 and 4 for these 2.
Okay. So that's why I was surprised because I assumed we had them flipped and I didn't know how you'd break the tie. The DPOY broke the tie.
I mean, no, I broke the tie. The way we broken the tie, like throughout, it's just that,
experience.
Look, Evan Mobley is 4, and to me, it's Evan Mobley's just done it a little bit longer than Chet has at this point. But sure. Chet Holmgren is at number 5. I think there's a real case for Chet anywhere from 2 to 5, realistically. I'll hear out anywhere from 2 to 5 with Chet. It's hard for me to get him past 5, honestly. Yeah. I like a lot of what he does in terms of like versatility a little bit more than some of these other guys, but Chet's anticipation is just totally different. He's 7 foot with a 7'6" wingspan, maybe 7'1", whatever he's listed at, but it's the anticipation. It's the way that he thinks the game. Like, yes, you can do anything with him. You can, as a big at the 5, you can play him in drop. You can play him as a 4-man where he guards on the perimeter. Like, you can play him in a catch drop, like at the level, right? You can play him and switch him just like straight up because he can guard 4s. You can play him as like your weak side havoc inducing help defender, like they did this year with Hartenstein in minutes. You can play him as your primary defensive 5, like they did against the Indiana Pacers in the playoffs, right? He just does everything is the reality. I think he's a little bit better of a defensive rebounder than what Jaren Jackson is a guy that like theoretically can switch between the 4 and the 5 and kind of move along and be versatile positionally. To me, I think he's going to win a defensive player of the year someday. I pretty strongly believe that, unless Victor just stays healthy every single year of his career and he just owns them for the next like 7 years or whatever. But like, I don't know if that's going to be the case. It's the way he anticipates actions. He has to watch just like an insane amount of tape because he knows exactly what it feels like ball handlers are trying to do all the time. He knows how they're trying to attack him. His hips for being 7'1", like I see people say all the time, he has to get stronger. He has to get stronger. He has to put on weight. I agree with the fact that he has to get stronger, but what makes Chet Holmgren so special to me on defense is the hip flexibility and like the ability to drop his hips and flip his hips all the time and just stay in front of guys or play in recovery and turn and run and be able to like just be an elite presence, coming from behind as a shot blocker. Like he is a monster everywhere. The way that he'll see things develop on the weak side, like he'll be at the opposite elbow and like make these crazy like scramble rotations down from the opposite elbow and like just go and get a shot at the rim. I just think Chet is so special on defense in terms of the way that he sees things coming and thinks the game. Truly one of my favorite defenders to watch in the NBA. And it perfectly fits within what Oklahoma City is trying to do defensively.
People are right. He does need to get stronger and some weight and all of that. But I've said it since his quote unquote rookie year. He holds up better than I could have imagined for his size. Like he will take contact in the chest, right? And it doesn't look like he should be able to take contact and then hold his ground, but he doesn't just get these weak side rotation blocks, and he does do plenty of those, but he'll rim protect where he's squared up with the offensive player, take contact in the chest. And then I just think he has really good timing, right? And this is what
unbelievable timing. Yeah,
the length is real, right? And you have to have that type of length to be a top 5 defender in the NBA. But you don't just because you have it. Well, you don't have to have that type of length. One player's not. But it's not just that. You have to combine it with other things. And I think the timing is a huge part of that. I also want to give him love for his defensive rebounding. If you look like per 100, just on the defensive end, he increased it by 1 per game, and that stayed into the playoffs. And what did we talk about for the Oklahoma City Thunder potentially being an Achilles heel was the defensive rebounding. Hartenstein was a huge part of that, but I think Chet came back and, showed real growth on that end after being injured. And I will say, I think part of why I think people can probably figure it out that Evan Mobley is going to be next, that part of why I had Mobley above Chet was DPOY and that Chet had missed a full year and only played 32 games last season, but he showed his defensive impact in all, 114 regular season games. And then we talked about it throughout the playoffs, Sam, that even when the offense wasn't as good as what people wanted, the defensive impact and imprint was always there.
To your point on the rim protection, and this is something that all of the Gonzaga bigs do. They just get taught this incredibly well. Chet had this a little bit before he got to Gonzaga too, so I don't really want to just give the Gonzaga coaching staff the credit, but they do deserve a lot of credit for this. They're unbelievable teaching verticality.
Yes.
They do an amazing job at it. All of their bigs do it. They are great at teaching the ability to just stay as big as humanly possible with your arms as high as possible while also retreating and being able to avoid foul calls. Chet this year only averaged 2.3 fouls per game, which is like a crazy, crazy low number for how often he contested the basket. I mean, the guy is just a crazy smart defender to me. And to your point about embracing contact, that was like a huge thing that people questioned with him coming into the NBA. And I just did not really, frankly, have those questions because the guy is just tough as shit, man.
Yeah.
Like that's the reality. Chet Holmgren this year played those 32 games or whatever he played, right?
Yeah.
32. Yep. Contested 6 shots per game. Do you know what opponents shot against him at the rim, according to the NBA site?
At the rim, 51%.
They shot 44% against him at the rim.
Wow.
Which is bonkers. It is a completely insane number. And yes, like I think we did probably dock him slightly for the games played, right? I ultimately probably would have had him at 3 if not for the games played. I think that's the reality. I think Chet is an unbelievable, intelligent rim protector who also can do more. You can play him in whatever coverage you want. You can play him at the 4. You can play him at the 5. And he's just a totally dominant defensive presence out there. And to me, like, people will say like Lou Dort is the best defender on the Thunder. And, Hartenstein was great this year. And, obviously we have 5 Thunder guys. This is the final Thunder guy on our list. Finally, we had Caruso at number 9, right? I just think Caruso is a monster, but Chet is very clearly their best defender.
Yeah.
Like the way that he impacts the game with his length, the versatility, the rim protection without blocking shots. Seriously, again, if you want to have him at 2, I'll hear out a case for 2. I couldn't quite get him to 2. I had like a pretty locked in answer at number 2 personally, but on a per minute basis, I think I would have him at number 3 right now. I just kind of docked him a couple spots for number 5.
Yeah.
Because of the games.
I realized why I was high. So I knew Stewart was like I was thinking 48, but was at 46% defending at the rim. So I was like, okay, well, if Stu's 48, I thought led the NBA, then Chet's probably like at 50, 51, right? Well, no, it's because Chet is the only player higher than Isaiah Stewart in terms of field goal percentage allowed at the rim. And again, it's funny because just the completely different body types, even between those two guys, right? But I think what I love about Chet is, again, whenever we get to Wemby, I'm going to talk about how he can get away with some stuff. Chet, like, I feel like even in ball screen coverages, I always watch for this because, again, sorry to non-Pistons fans, Jalen Duren's really bad about his body positioning and ball screen defense. So I'm always looking for examples of the elite bigs doing it the quote unquote right way. And so, Chet is one of those. He stays square. He opens his hips the right way to get to recoveries and all of that. Like he's just like, he has this length. He has this competitiveness, another common theme as we've gone through these, Sam, but he also just like gets position correct. He's in the right spots. You brought it up. We've mentioned it multiple times. He's just really, really impressive. I'm with you. I think if we do this 12 months from now and he's healthy enough to play 70 games and all of that, he's obviously going to make all defense, and he could very well be number 2 behind only the guy we have at number 1.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, Chet is a joke. Like the guy's a total joke to me on the defensive end. And I think I could honestly like spend the next 30 minutes talking about him on defense, just in terms of the way he thinks the game, in terms of the way that he'll rotate across the weak side. Yeah, I mean, just a total monster. To me, like the positionally versatile ability to play both the 4 and the 5 and to do so highly effectively, which the next guy does as well. I think Chet's probably a little bit better than Mobley at the 5 personally, but I think Mobley's probably a little bit better as that, kind of weak side rotational help defender than Chet is. And we'll talk about the differences between the two, but man, I just can't speak highly enough of what Chet Holmgren did this year when he was on the court. Let's go to number 4, though, and go to Evan Mobley. So Evan Mobley is your reigning defensive player of the year. We have him at number 4. I think Evan, I would not have voted Evan for defensive player of the year. I was pretty clear on that. I would have voted the guy who's coming next. But I think Evan is a worthy defensive player of the year for sure. Has been 2 times first team all defense. Would have been first team all defense in all likelihood in 2024 had he not gotten injured. What makes Mobley to me so special is just the fluidity with which he moves. He moves unlike any other 7-footer, realistically. The ability to flip his hips, to slide his feet laterally. People will say that like bigs move like wings all the time, just in terms of their coordination and everything like that. Like people will bring up, oh yeah, like AD when he was younger, like he moved like a wing, right? Bam Adebayo, like he slides his feet like a wing. Bam still like gets like a little bit top heavy. He's just so strong and physical and like is so good laterally. But like he moves like a guy that's 6'9" to 6'10" to me, right? Evan Mobley is so fluid that I do think he moves like a wing.
Sure.
The footwork, the dexterity, the way he uses his length, he is like somewhere between a 7'4" and 7'5" wingspan. He's gotten smarter defensively. Like I would say that he is a guy that like kind of gets pigeonholed into being like the toolsy defender a lot of the time, but his ability to like read and react on the weak side now is like genuinely crazy. I think he is so good on that end. He is maybe not the best guy in the league, but certainly in the top 3. And I'll hear out a case for him at number 1 at playing in like the 1-on-2 on the weak side. Yeah. Whenever a team puts Jared Allen in a ball screen and he's forced to play in that 1-on-2 situation. He the way he covers that ground is just completely remarkable. Used to be Giannis that I think was like the best at that in the league. I would say now I think there's a real case. It's Mobley now. Honestly, I think it probably is him. The ability to just completely blow up plays after his teammates get beaten. This is not an amazing defensive backcourt, right? I thought Donovan Mitchell had a really good year defensively, but still probably about average on defense, maybe slightly above average. Darius Garland is not a plus on defense. I think it's fair to say. DeAndre Hunter to me is like good on the ball, but doesn't always, make the right rotations, read and react wise on the backside. Karis LeVert, I would not say is like a particularly positive defender who played 38 games there this year. Obviously Hunter only played like the back half as well. So you get like a full season between those two. George Niang is pretty slow. Ty Jerome is pretty slow. I actually think Sam Merrill's a pretty good defender, but there's a lot of guys that aren't particularly fast on that end. And he just covers up all of the warts and covers up all of the flaws when they get beaten because of his ability to rotate and scramble and just make the right read when mapping the court.
I mean, I think something we talk about all the time especially when we're going through the pre-draft and NBA draft stuff is we talk about ground coverage defensively, even when we're just talking the NBA in general and how you have to be able to cover ground, and Mobley absolutely does that, and that's a huge part of what you're talking about, being able to be this successful on the weak side. And so that's one thing that stands out to me. I think the off-ball defense, and again, that's what's kind of fun now. I feel like for a while, I don't know, maybe not, but it seemed like Jaren kind of had the mantle of as the best like off the ball roamer, rim protector type player. And, Chet can do that. I think Evan Mobley is really good at that. And I think it's a real fun conversation. Listen, I made this argument during the year. Everybody, clipped the Harden where he kind of got him off balance and all of that. But, and I do think like the switchability, the point attack defense can be hit and miss with different matchups. But I do think he offers enough of that. As well. Yeah. I've watched enough. I went back and read through the notes. I went back and watched the film that he does have that ability to do a little bit of both. And we talk all the time about like Dyson Daniels leading to transition. We talked about this with Asar leading to transition. Like these guys are doing the same things, again, you go back and you watch and it's, recovery block and that leads to transition 3. Another rotation block leads to clear path foul. Like just all of this stuff. I think he had in the playoffs, I think he like somehow blocked a Halliburton floater. I don't know how you block a floater from Halliburton. That just, I'm not sure if I trust my notes on this one, Sam. I was like, did I write that? But it leads directly to a Strus 3. It's like those impactful defensive plays are also leading to offense in the same way as steal does or a deflection, something like that.
Yeah, and look, like you're still talking 2.5 stocks per game, right? Like he's still out there making a crazy number of plays. But I think he is so good positionally now at knowing exactly where to like put his body. And he's been this way since his second season in the NBA. Like this isn't new. But I think he is so good at being able to dissuade drives and dissuade passes just through his presence now. Like I think teams are worried about, okay, if I throw this pass where he's in the 1-on-2, I can't really manipulate him. Like guards can't really manipulate him anymore because of how smart he is and because of how long he is. He'll be beaten occasionally, right? But like it's harder to do than it used to be when he was even younger, right? I think his willingness and his length to be able to cover ground on closeouts, like you will see him tag in a little bit more aggressively and just take up space in the lane. And it kind of just dissuades drivers at the end of the day, knowing that he's there and that like he has the reactivity where if you try to throw a kick out, he might just jump up and get it. Or he has the ability to close out and get all the way from like being one step in the lane to getting all the way out to a corner shooter at the end of the day. Like, the mobility is just such a real factor for him, man. Like the fact that he is this mobile at 7 foot tall with this kind of length, it's just kind of mind boggling to me. Like he is another one of those guys who just feels like he teleports places on the court and you don't know how he got there. You see him take these incredibly long strides, but then he doesn't really even jump and like get off balance in the way that you see a lot of bigs do. He's just an immensely talented player on the defensive end.
And I think another player where the defensive rebounding has improved throughout his career, again, especially if you like look at per 100, it doesn't look as impressive if you just like look per game. But that's because he's actually playing less, a few less minutes per game in years 3 and 4 of his career and averaging more defensive rebounds per game. So that's become more impactful. And I will also say, I do think he's getting like his play strength is getting stronger. I think you notice it more on the offensive end. I had a lot of notes about that where like offensively, he's playing through contact on drives and stuff like that. But those things play to his defensive impact as well. Holding his line against a drive, holding up when he's squared against a bigger player in the paint. And so that play strength, and I'm sure he's gotten stronger and weighs more in general, but the practical aspect of that, I think, is showing out in his game as well.
Yeah, totally fair. Winner for Defensive Player of the Year last year. I certainly had him first team all defense. I have no beef whatsoever with him winning that award. I would have gone a different direction, but he's a completely worthy winner and the guy we have at number 4 this year. And yeah, just a total stud. I have no negative things really to say about him on that end. The guy I would have voted for is the guy that we had at number 3. I believe you would have voted Mobley. I think you had. I think
I had Mobley. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I would have voted Amen Thompson at 3. you had Thompson ahead of Mobley in this ranking.
Yep.
So you're predicting some improvement is my guess. I just kind of positioned his like classification here as like the most switchable, destructive havoc defender in the league. And I like, he can guard ones. We saw him play the 5 for a stretch there as a rookie. Like, he is the twitchiest player in the NBA athletically. He's the most explosive player in the NBA athletically, in my opinion. Unbelievable in terms of his instincts and help defense. He's another guy that just like really, with his positioning, induces so much havoc, because he has the ability to close out anywhere on the court and scramble to anywhere on the court, while also just like staying in the lane and using his positioning to where he can just have like 1 foot in the lane, left foot like out high to be able to like get out to the 3-point shooter if necessary. If he gets like a same side kick out, like he'll leave guys and just dig down onto a handle, and then someone will hit the same side kick out, and then he'll just get back on the same side kick out, which like nobody in the NBA other than him can do.
I was going to say him and then the guy that at one, like they break rules, right? Like they're
yes,
they are able to break
that's an
rules.
Amazing way to put it. These guys are rule breakers in the NBA.
Yes. Maybe all 3 of these guys and in different ways. Amin does it with his athleticism. Draymond is able to break rules because his brain works at a different process than everybody else. Yeah. And Victor breaks rules because of his size.
Yeah. I think that's such a great way to put it. Like, Amen is an absolute rule breaker on defense.
It's ridiculous
because of the way that he just like he can get anywhere he wants to is the reality. And then, oh, by the way, we're talking about an unbelievable weak side rim protector. Like if he's the low man, he will go get a shot. He averaged 1.3 blocks per game. His hand-eye coordination is incredible. He is incredibly disruptive on the ball defensively, taking on tough matchups. He attacks opposing players' handle with his hands. He will really use his length to get in there. He's like 6'7" with a 6'11 and a half wingspan or whatever it is. Like, he is able to really get into dudes. And then, oh, by the way, the thing we talked about with Asar, I think also applies to men, where these guys look skinny.
Yeah.
They are not skinny.
No.
Like, they are 215 pounds or whatever they are, 220 pounds. And they are like brick shit houses, being able to like accept contact and embrace contact and absorb it. And then just keep going forward even because of their explosiveness. There's never a point, because a men's motor runs so hot. There's never a point, in my opinion, where he's out of a play. Like, he'll get drilled on a screen because he just like misjudges it, and then he'll just fight back and get over the top. And it's like, well, here I am. I'm going to contest from behind. You have to know that I'm here now. You have to account for the fact that I jump higher than you. I am incredibly long, and I am a threat to block your shot, right? Like, you almost certainly have to lean forward on your shot in some way and get yourself off balance. I think that honestly, the next two, like Amen and the next guy on the list, they're my 2 favorite defenders to watch in the NBA. There are other guys that like I really enjoy watching. Like, I love watching Jalen Suggs defend. I certainly love watching Alex Caruso defend. He would be in my top 5. Chet would certainly be in my top 5 in this regard. Like, those are probably the 5 if you made me say. But man, it's just a different animal with his athleticism. And on top, like, we're talking about the athleticism and the strength and the explosiveness, but he thinks it incredibly well too, in terms of the way that he's anticipating different actions and in the way that he's getting into gaps and just kind of plugging up gaps with his presence there, knowing that he can get out to wherever his position is like supposed to be. Because as you said, he's a rule breaker.
The cross-section of athleticism, skill, motor is so rare. One thing that I come away very impressed with him is how sound he is. So like, you watch him against Jalen Brunson and he stays down, and someone so young, so athletic, the discipline to not go for shot fakes. One thing that does, Sam, it keeps him out of foul trouble. He only averaged how many 2.5 fouls per game last year in 32 minutes a game. So again, if you look at like a per 100 possession basis, he went significantly down from his rookie year. Defensive rebounds. The athleticism, man, is so ridiculous. Like I had some ones where like I'm literally like laughing out loud in my notes because he blocks a floater from Ja. And like, I want to ask people, how many people have you seen block an SGA mid-range pull-up whenever he's defending SGA on the ball? Not many. The answer is not many. Like that doesn't happen. Yeah. But I think the biggest compliment I can give him is he's one of the few wing defenders where like you have to know where he's at all times. He changes the decision-making process of the offensive players. This is something we usually talk about with like the Rudy Goberts and those type of guys at the rim, that even Rudy, where we had him at 9 or 10 or whatever, he still changes the decision-making at the rim. Amin does it all over the floor. You better not go into a mid-range jumper if you don't know where he's at, because he may be coming from behind you. You better not go to the rim soft in transition because he may be flying down the court to chase you down. And so it's just, and you better not throw a lazy pass to the wing because he's running through it. His ability to be involved in everything and change the decision-making process of offensive players, make them account for him at all times, is why I'm comfortable having him this high, even as a quote unquote purely perimeter defender. And I think you could argue that a little bit, but it's because not many guys change the decision-making process of the offense the way Amin is able to.
Just completely changes the way you have to play on that end. It is kind of incredible. Like he dissuades drives. He gets into your shit as an on-ball defender, but like dissuades drives as a defensive player and help. Can weak side rim rotate in a significant way. You know, unbelievable in the 1-on-2 on the backside. You know, we mentioned that with Mobley, but like he would probably be in my top 5 or 6 at being able to do that as well.
Sure.
Playing the 1-on-2 on the backside. He can switch onto anybody in the league because he's strong and physical. And again, we saw him play the 5 for a stretch there when he was a rookie. Like as a first year player, he was able to do that. Yeah, man. Like, I mean, look, everyone knows that Amen is one of my 2 or 3 favorite players in the league, certainly. But like, man, I can't speak highly enough of the way that he plays on that end.
Yeah. I'm with you in terms of like just fun to watch. I would go with the next guy just because of like the processing and stuff like that's really fun. And Amin has some of that, but yeah, Amin's definitely top 3 for me. If we're just talking about like enjoy watching them do their thing on the defensive end.
I had Amin at 3.
So that was interesting because I had Amin at 2. Like I was sure that Amin was going to be 2 because I figured you'd have him 2 with me. So that's surprising to me.
So we tied here, and I gave, again, the default to the tiebreaker, which was guy who's done it forever.
Yeah.
And Draymond Green is the best defensive quarterback in the NBA.
Yeah.
It's the reality of him. I thought that we saw it in stretches this year. Like, I think Amen, the reason I would have voted Amen Defensive Player of the Year over Draymond was that I thought that Amen did it for the full season.
Yeah.
Was the reality. Whereas Draymond was great for the first like 15 games, I think was less good for the next like 30, 35 games or whatever. And then was great for the final quarter of the season, maybe even the final third of the season. Like the last 25 games, I thought Draymond was far and away the best defensive player in the league. I don't even think there was a conversation because Victor was out at that point. And the way that Draymond just completely quarterbacked the Golden State Warriors defense back into the playoff picture and, you know, ends up with them being, I think they were a top 3 defense in the league last year, something like that. They were 7th in defense, but I think over the last like third of the season, they were like 1 or 2, honestly. He was a just incredible monster on that end in the way that he was able to yell out coverages. He's the best communicator on defense I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I think is the best.
For what it's worth, Sam, they were first post All-Star break in defensive rating.
There it is.
Break. Yeah.
So I think he's the best defensive communicator I've ever seen. If somebody like if there was like a kid that I was trying to help like get better at basketball and like was trying to specifically help them like learn how they have to talk on the court, I would tell them, watch Draymond Green tape. You will actually hear him on the court, like from the TV. He's one of the few guys that you actually hear because he yells out orders constantly to his team. He knows exactly what the offense is trying to do before they do it.
Yeah.
Because he is clearly watching more tape on that end of what offenses are trying to do than anybody in the league, I think.
Yeah.
I think that has to be the reality, because he literally will call out actions before they happen based on how the team aligns and based on just their initial movement. He will call out actions to his teammates and tell them he's going this way. You come here. He'll like grab defenders and like pull them toward him and then shoot out another way. Like, he is the smartest defender I've ever seen play basketball in my life. I don't know if he's the best defender overall I've ever seen play defensively in my life, because there's limited tools here, right? Like, he's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the, biggest guy in the world. He's like 6'6", right? He has incredible length, but there are physical limitations that drop him from being like maybe the best defender I've ever seen in my life. But Draymond changed defense in the NBA first and foremost, with the ability to play at the 5 and be switchable at 6'6" with his strength and with his power and physicality and motor. But even still, now that he's not quite as explosive as he was then, he's still the smartest defender in the NBA, because he clearly gives so much to his craft and gives so much to the game of basketball that there's never a point where I think that he is like out of position. Like, even in moments where like he's like rule breaking, like you say, I know that there's a reason why he's doing that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And because of that, like he has made me smarter in evaluating defense, because he makes me go, okay, that's not a rule. Like, that's not what he is supposed to do.
Yeah. When
he is the low man on the weak side. Why is he doing that? Go ahead.
No, I have the perfect example. I will never forget this play. It's against the Rockets. Şengün has the ball. He's supposed to be taking away the basket, and he purposely stands outside the lane, knowing that Amin is cutting baseline on the weak side, and just baits Şengün into throwing the backdoor, what he thinks is a backdoor pass to Amin for the catch and finish. And as soon as Şengün passes it, he steps over. And that's when we say rule breaking. For Amin, it's the athleticism. For Draymond, it's the processing, the court mapping, right? He's the one that made me think, we got to stop just talking about offensive players court mapping. We got to start giving defensive players love for court mapping. That's how Draymond breaks the rules, because he should have just been standing there, Sam. He should have been standing there and just taking it away. And instead he goes, I know what Amin's going to do, and I'm going to make Şengün, who's a hell of a processor in his own right, I'm going to make him think that Amin's going to be open, and then I'm going to steal it as soon as he passes it.
Yep. No, it's exactly right. On top of that, like, he is still mobile enough. Like, he still moves well. He is still out there taking on tough assignments consistently and stopping like the opposing players or making their lives harder. Right. The counting numbers may not be there quite at the levels they've been previously, but I had no problem with him being first team all defense this year, even in spite of, the struggles that he had for the middle portion of the season, in my opinion. We're working off of 5 years. He's been all defense in 4 of those years. Even still, he's a 9-time all defensive player. And anybody that says Draymond Green's not a Hall of Famer, you guys are out of your fucking minds. Like, I don't care that he has not averaged 10 points a game since 2018. I do not care. He is this era's best defender. From 2015 until 2025, he is the best defender in the NBA over a full decade of the NBA. He has made 9 all defense teams in 11 years And the only reason he didn't make the other two is because he played 43 and 55 games in those other 2 seasons. The guy is incredible on that end. He has genuinely changed the way that NBA teams defend.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and what I love about his rim protection, so you could look at the block numbers, right? Like just like the raw block numbers, and they don't stand out to you. But I think he protects the rim in a multitude of ways. So again, just like talking about thinking and processing a certain way, he knows exactly when he should try to block a shot. He knows when he should try to play with verticality. He knows when he should try to take a charge. He's not Tamani Kamara, but he's top 6 or 7 in the NBA in charges drawn. And so he just understands, how do I have to get it done on this possession, Sam? Do I got to dig at it? We talked about this with Hartenstein, right? With his hands. Draymond has great hands, so he can dig it out before it ever gets above their waist. If it's a guy he can contest up high, he'll go play with verticality. If he needs to get there and block it, he'll block it. If he has none of those options, he'll try to take a charge. And so it just, that level of versatility in the way that he can protect the rim is what is truly special. It just, whenever you're looking at, like say around the rim, restricted area of the paint.
Yeah. I mean, the guy just completely blows my mind on that end. Like with the versatility that you just mentioned, the ability to impact like all 3 levels of the defense.
Sure.
With that communication style. It's remarkable. And I close on the communication just because, again,
yes, I think this is important. Yeah.
I think that is what his superpower is, his brain. Draymond Green should not be an NBA Hall of Famer, right? Based off of the tools, based off of the talent, should not be a Hall of Famer, right? But he's a Hall of Famer because of his brain and because of his toughness and because of the fact that he is willing to be like a leader out on the court. He say whatever you will about like the fearlessness and lack of give a fuck. It has certainly come back to bite him in the past. And it is a real factor in him, people not liking him. You're not a Draymond Green fan. I totally get it because he's made mistakes in the past. But I think that lack of give a fuck is why he is who he is. At the same token, it's exactly why he is able to command such respect, because he's done it and he's been there and he's able to accomplish so far beyond what his tools and talent should indicate necessarily because of his brain, his intelligence, and his motor and his lack of fear to me on the court. And that communication style is like kind of the ultimate positive example of that. Guys follow him because he knows what he's doing out there and he has a proven track record of it at this point.
I love the communication point. It's very important.
Okay. Number 1, Victor Wembanyama is like the absolute best defender in the NBA when he's on the court. Is the reality. I've never seen a defender who changes the geometry of basketball in the way that Victor does. Victor averaged nearly 4 blocks and 1.1 steals per game this year. He rebounds the ball at an exceptionally high level on the defensive end. But more than anything, it does come down to the fact of that geometry, like adjustment, right? Teams just like don't drive into him when he's in the lane. And when they do, he has a real shot to go get the ball at the end of the day. Like, I feel like he is probably going to go get the ball every single time that he ends up making, that he ends up there or like anywhere near the semblance of the play. He contested more shots at the rim this year than any player in the league at 8.1 per game. And teams shot 50% at the rim against him. That is the best number in the NBA outside of like the backup, class, and Chet Holmgren, obviously, who we just mentioned. But like, Chet didn't play enough to qualify for this necessarily. But the guys who are like backups, Isaiah Stewart, Daniel Gafford is on this list. Pseudo, borderline starter backup. Stewart, borderline starter backup. Isaiah Jackson in his 5 games was fairly high on this list. But essentially, he is the toughest guy to finish over in the league. He blocks more shots than anybody in the league. He moves his feet well enough to play like a high drop if you want to. He can go out and get shots on the perimeter. He covers ground better than anybody in the league outside of Mobley, I would argue. I think Mobley does get out to shooters a little bit better than he does, but I mean, look, it's understandable. Victor Wembanyama is 7'4" with a 7'11" wingspan or an 8-foot wingspan, whatever it is. And we've just never seen somebody with those measurements before.
Yeah, the ground coverage. I mean, and he does it going both directions. So, I have, he's at the 3-point line on one wing, it's all the way to the other side of the rim to block a shot from behind, or he goes from the middle of the lane to the corner to block a catch and shoot 3-point attempt. And that's where he changes the decision making, obviously around the rim, but he also changes your decision making at the 3-point line because he can get to closeouts that not everybody can. Just the sheer reach in terms of changing the trajectory of your shot, whether it's a mid range or a 3-pointer. I'm glad you brought up the defensive rebounding. I think that's important as well. Two other things, we've already talked about the rule breaking thing. I mean, I literally have it right here. He breaks all the rules of how I would teach guys to defend. He has his hips completely open in ball screen coverage, and it does not matter because he's able to turn because he has these fluid hips. So he's still able to turn and contest the lob pass or recover whatever he needs. The other thing is, he is a competitor. You always talk about this with Chet, and rightfully so. You have ever since Chet came into the league, probably even before he came into the league. Wemby, he takes matchups personal. He understands the stage, all of those things. And I think that's important to be this level of defender. The athletic tools, the length, the physical tools, all of that absolutely has to be there. But so does this mentality that it seems he has for embracing the moment, the competitiveness, all of those components as well.
Ultimate rule breaker on defense. I would argue he's not even great positionally yet.
No, I would. I stopped taking notes about it because I felt like I was just being stupid, but I could make a lot of notes. I could probably point out enough to say he's neutral in terms of just positioning. Yeah.
He gets himself out too high pretty regularly, I would argue. Just knowing that, I don't know how purposeful it is, or if it's just him kind of letting it rock a little bit.
Yeah.
But, I'll hear out that it's purposeful and he's basically just daring guys to drive past him so that he can go block the shot. But there are moments where he's just kind of out way too high and it doesn't look the way it's supposed to. Doesn't matter. Absolutely doesn't matter because he's able to cover all of the ground in recovery. Yeah. He's the best recovery defender in the NBA.
Yeah.
And that's because he has a larger margin for error with his length and athleticism than any other player does in NBA history, is the reality. So, but the thing that goes underrated with the length is something you kind of, mentioned there. It's the fluidity athletically.
Yes.
Being as big as he is and as long as he is while also maintaining that length and athleticism is just something we haven't seen before. Nobody who has ever played in the NBA has been as mobile at 7'4" with an 8-foot wingspan as Victor Wembanyama is. We've seen guys be 7'3" to 7'4", Kareem was 7'3" to 7'4", but he was just not this big, or was not this mobile. And even watching the old clips and stuff, you will watch Kareem and you will go, oh no, he moves incredibly well, but he doesn't move like Vic does.
Yeah.
That's kind of the reality of the situation. So, he is something we've never seen before. And you see it most starkly, in my opinion, on the defensive end. Obviously won first team all defense and was second in defensive player of the year as a rookie, which is just the most batshit bonkers thing I think I've ever seen in my life. Would have won defensive player of the year if he'd played 19 more games. It's the reality. Would have had no issues. If the blood clot hadn't happened, then, we're talking about Victor Wembanyama already having a defensive player of the year award. Sorry, Evan Mobley, but that's what would have happened.
We both believe any year where he plays 65, he's going to win DPOY.
I think it is extremely likely. Yeah, it would require them finishing like 20th to 25th in defense because the rest of their players are just like completely abjectly terrible on that end. I think that he's like minus 400, minus 500 to win Defensive Player of the Year in a year where he's fully healthy.
Yeah,
because it just is. It's very hard to stop. Like, they were 8 points per 100 possessions better with him on the court defensively than when he was off the court defensively. Like, when he was on the court this year, they were the equivalent of being, what is this? Like the 7th best defense in the league, 8th best defense in the league. Without him, they were the worst defense in the league. Just point blank.
Yeah.
Like that's the difference that Vic brings to the table on that end.
I know this is like a very, very, very nuanced thing, but I also had, watching him, he like was starting to do these tip outlet passes that were just like really creative and really fun. And it's just like, what is this dude going to end up doing? And I bring it up because I think it does matter here. Like, we bring up defensive rebounding. Well, if now he becomes this, 8 or 9 or how many ever defensive rebounds he averages a game, but he becomes a really good, like, think about the outlet passes he can throw, Sam, that other players may not be able to. And if he's processing where I can get this rebound, I can tip outlet to Dylan Harper and get him out in transition a second faster because I don't have to come down and pivot and make the outlet pass. Like, that's just another added aspect to his defensive impact. So I'm fascinated to see what else, if he can stay healthy, what else he continues to add that kind of, as your favorite saying, breaks our brain in regards to this guy.
Yeah. I mean, there will be stuff that we're not thinking of right now.
Yes.
That's the reality. Like, There will be things that like we just haven't seen before that will be a normal part of his game on that end. And it's just like, well, okay, cool. Great.
Of course he did.
Of course. That makes sense. Why wouldn't you do this?
Why not? Yeah, exactly.
Look, that's the top 25 defenders in the league. So we'll run through them one last time. Walker Kessler, number 25, Andrew Nembhard, number 24, Isaiah Hartenstein, number 23, Giannis, number 22, Chris Dunn, number 21, Jalen Suggs, number 20, Ivica Zubac, number 19, Jalen Williams, number 18, Jaden McDaniels, number 17, Asar Thompson, 16, Lou Dort, 15, Tamani Kamara, 14, OG Anunoby, 13, Herb Jones, 12, Dyson Daniels, 11, Rudy Gobert, 10, Alex Caruso, 9. Then today's episode, Anthony Davis, number 8, Bam Adebayo, number 7, Jaren Jackson, number 6, Chet Holmgren, number 5, Evan Mobley, number 4, Amen Thompson, number 3, Draymond Green, number 2, Victor Wembanyama, number 1. I feel okay about this. I feel like this is a fun list. I feel like this was great. This was enjoyable.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was much more difficult than I thought it was going to be when you first told me we were going to do it.
You were ready to stab me.
Yeah, I texted you very early on in the process and I said, Sam, this is impossible. I was not having fun trying to weed out names and all of that, but I'm happy with where we got to. People are never going to be happy with these lists overall. I hope that people can at least appreciate the work that went into it and the nuance of the conversations around the players. We didn't just list, and I'm not trying to call somebody out there. I have no idea if other people do this, but like, we didn't just say, hey, they have this many all defensive teams. Like, I don't think we mentioned whatever the analytical defensive stats were the entire time, right? Like, we didn't just do it based off those things either. I felt like we went off. You can disagree with our eye, but I think you should be able to trust that this was from our eye watching games and taking notes, and hopefully everybody can at least appreciate that and enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, looking through real quick, just like trying to figure out Caruso, Dunn, Asar Thompson, Victor Wembanyama, Amen Thompson. Those are your top guys in defensive EPM last year. Jonathan Isaac next. Isaac,
we talked about that.
We would have had, but just has played I think 1,800 minutes the last 3 years or something like that. So even in the parts of the career here where he's been healthy, he just can't play more than 15 minutes a game, it feels like. Then Chet Holmgren, Draymond Green, Ivica Zubac, Jalen Williams. That's your group. And then it gets super tight after that. So I feel pretty good about this. The guy that like I have some minor regrets on is Jared Allen. I really like Jared Allen quite a bit, and I wonder if I was too low on him, ranking him like in the top 30-ish. But yeah, I mean, I feel very, very good about this list.
We talked about here, even, I mean, not on this episode, but the very first one where that the early names of the first episode probably extended into a tier beyond, right? Like it wasn't like at 25 where just like there was a tier break or whatever. Maybe there was for you.
I would say for me, at least, I felt pretty good about the top 22 to 23.
Yeah.
And then those final 2 or 3 names, like I think are in a group.
Yeah. And we had conversations about a couple other guys and all of that as well. So, I mean, I again, want just to reiterate, like it was hard to get these 25 names on there. And, you know, like you mentioned at the top, there's probably going to be some names people don't love, but that they're a little bit lower. But man, like there's some good defenders in the NBA right now.
Totally agree. Okay, Bryce. We're going to be back later this week with 2020 redraft. Again, we're pre-recording that, so we will have that for you guys at some point. Tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. The Pistons Pulse podcast, at this point, it's already out and been released. I had a fun episode with my former head coach, Jeff Jones. So go check that out, where we just talked basketball, you know, his journey, the state of basketball, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, right here, Game Theory Podcast with the Sam Vecenie. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and help us continue to grow. But thank you for your support.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. We appreciate all of you immensely for coming to hang out and enjoy this content. We have just like the best group of people listening to the show. We appreciate you guys so much for coming to rock with us. We will be back in a few days with that 2020 redraft. Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I'm out on vacation, so nothing new coming from me there necessarily for a minute, but go over there, support my coworkers. I appreciate them all immensely, and thank you all for coming here and watching and hopefully enjoying this project and not yelling at us too much. So until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.